One of the most difficult things as a student of literature is to realise that the characters you come across aren't real. They're not supposed to be real people. And Steinbeck, with Lennie, takes this to quite a few extremes. This picture shows Lennie as quite a massive man, much bigger than in the films that you've probably watched. And one of the questions I want to ask here is just how massive Lennie would have to be in order to fit the strength profile that Steinbeck gives him. And I hope that Primrose Kitten will be able to answer this in her video. So let's first look at our evidence. "Oh, I ain't saying he's bright," says George. "He ain't, but he's a goddamn good worker. He can put up a 400-pound bale." So this is a bale of hay that weighs 400 pounds. That's 25 stone. And in order to put it up, he's going to need to be able to lift this probably to chest height, but certainly to waist height in order to get it into some kind of wagon. So the next question might be, what would an Olympic lifter be able to achieve? It turns out that being able to lift 400 pounds is not really that remarkable. So here I've given you the British weightlifting records, because it's most likely that these are drug-free, because our drug testing regime is so good. So the first highlight here is for the clean and jerk. This is where you bring the weight to your shoulders and then push it up above your head. So the first body weight that someone can do this at is 85 kilos. And you can see here that they're lifting 192 kilos over their head. That's 10 kilos more than 400 pounds. And at 105 kilos in body weight or more, so this is what we'd think of as a heavyweight, they can actually lift 180 kilos above their head in one movement. So it goes straight from the floor above their head, far stronger than Lennie would need to be simply to lift the weight to his belly or his chest. So far then we can see that he's a realistic character, and when George says that Lennie is strong as a bull, this simile is an exaggerated description. He's not literally as strong as a bull and wouldn't need to be to lift that 400-pound bale. However, there is a feat of strength that he's going to perform later, which will make us look again at whether a human being could possibly be that strong. For now, I'd like to look at the symbolism again. So Steinbeck calls Lennie small. He gives him the surname Small, despite the fact that he's so massive. One reason for this might be to indicate his tiny level of intelligence. Another reason might be to suggest his small level of significance. He could be like the mouse in the title of Mice and Men. He gets killed and will be instantly forgotten, just as he is by Carlson and Curly at the end. Lennie is also described as a series of animals. So when drinking, he's described as a horse. When he refuses to give the dead mouse back to George, he's described as a terrier. Both these animals are powerful and subservient, obedient to men, just like Lennie is obedient to George. But there's also something cleverer going on with the symbolism. Do you remember that when Lennie is first introduced, he's described as swinging his arms like bear's paws? And I began the video by showing you how he was as strong as a bull. And this contrast between the bear and the bull is different. These animals are not so domesticated. The bull is dangerous. That's what's symbolised by its horns. You wouldn't enter into a field that had a bull in it in the same way that you'd enter into a field of cows, and similarly the bears. So now Steinbeck is starting to link Lennie's strength with danger. One possibility is that Lennie, being the most innocent of people, having the mind of something like a 5-year-old, represents all mankind. This is what we're really like without an education, without a civilization to keep us in check. So the innocent Lennie is hugely powerful and hugely dangerous, in the same way that men, all mankind, is hugely dangerous unless society controls him or controls us. Now, one of the reasons that Steinbeck is asking this question is that he's really interested in how the whole of society has been controlled by the stock market. And Steinbeck juxtaposes these two deliberately to give us this image within Lennie. He is both the bear and the bull. So now the bull isn't just a representation of how strong Lennie is, he's a representation of how his fate is dictated by the Great Depression, by the great crash in the stock market of 1929. Lennie's great strength, which then results in his death, is very much like the power of the stock market that suddenly crashed and in that sense also died. So one way of looking at Lennie is to say he represents the inevitable tragedy that's going to happen to everybody. Steinbeck could be seeing the stock market not as some remote event, but actually describing something that will always happen. Mankind will always end up destroying things as things are destroyed in the novel, and as America in many ways was destroyed around him in the 1930s. Okay, well, how does this link with the science? Let's have a look at what actually happens. George shouted over and over, "Let go his hand, Lennie, let go! Slim, come help me while the guy got any hand left." So this is Curly's hand, and Lennie is crushing it to such an extent that George can see it literally disappearing. "We got to get him to a doctor," he said. "Looks to me like every bone in his hand is bust." So Lennie has crushed every single bone in Curly's hand. If that is possible, then what Steinbeck is suggesting here is that Lennie represents the destructive nature of mankind. We're addicted to violence, civilization is only really hanging on by the skin of its teeth, and at any point man can become horrifically violent, just like an animal, and so our civilization is only a veneer. However, if this feat of strength is impossible, then Steinbeck is showing that the main reason for Lennie's strength isn't to show man's physical savagery, but to show the savagery of a political system. The bull and the bear become symbolic of man's addiction to the stock market. We could then look at it as an attack against capitalism. So it's not just that man is capable of great evil, or even that man is naturally predisposed to being evil. It's saying that the whole political system in America, the capitalist system, is inevitably destructive and inevitably evil. In other words, it will change the novel from perhaps a moral story or a Christian story to a political one. And the only way that we'll solve this puzzle is by looking at the science. How much pressure would Lennie's hand have to deliver in order to crush the fist of Curly? And if that is physically possible, does it match the kind of strength that we've seen earlier, or would it need a far greater strength? So personally, I'd hope that it's a level of strength that's actually not possible, and therefore we could start seeing the novel as a political attack on America. But I just don't know. I can't wait to find out. So Primrose Kitten, over to you.